Welcome! In this session I would like to explain to you how to use Windows PowerShell to read and create JSON objects. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation and is a lightweight data interchange format that is easy for humans to read and write. Before I start, I need to make sure that you have a full understanding of variables, aliases, how to use the pipeline, and how to work with HTML and loops. If you are unsure or you would like to refresh your memory, please view one of my earlier sessions. To start off, I would like to explain to you what the JSON structure looks like. JSON is presented by an object. This object begins with a left brace and ends with a right brace. The JSON object contains members. These members can be one of the following: a value, an element, a pair, or an array. The value can be represented as a string of one or more characters. The backslash can be used as an escape character for the use, for example, of Unicode characters. It can be a number that can be a digit from 0 to 9, or it can have digits with a dash. It can be a fraction with a dot, or it can be the mathematical constant e. It can be another object. It could be an array. The value could be true or false, or it can be null. Here is an example of a string value. This is an example of a number value of a single digit 1. This is an example of a number value of digits and dashes. An element can either be a value, or it can be a value with more elements separated by commas. Here is an example of an element with the string value of my string. This is an example of an element with two string values and a number value, all separated by commas. A pair consists of a string and a value, separated by a colon. Here is an example of a pair called myString with a string value of myString1. This is an example of a pair called myNumber with a number value of 1. An array begins with a left square bracket and ends with a right square bracket. An array can contain elements within the brackets. Here is an example of an array called myArray. As you can see that it has a colon, that means that it is a pair where the value is an array with three string values called myString 1, 2, and 3. This is an example of a more complex array pair called array with two object elements that each have two pairs. The first pair within the first element is called myString pair 1 that has a string value of myString1. The second pair within the first element is called myNumber pair 1 and has a number value of 1. The first pair within the second element is called myString pair 2 that has a string value of myString2. The second pair within the second element is called myNumber pair 2 and has a number value of 2. Now to put this all together, here is an example of a JSON object. The object consists of a pair, another object element, and an array pair element. The pair is called name and has a string value of myName. The object element is called address and has 4 pairs. The first pair is called street address with the string value of myStreet. The second pair is called city and has a string value of myCity. The third pair is called state with a string value of myState. And the fourth pair is called postal code and has a number value of 10021. The array element is called phone number and has two object elements that each have two pairs. The first pair within the first element is called type, that has a string value of home. The second pair within the first element is called number and has a number value of 212 space 555-1234. The first pair within the second element is called type and has a string value of fax. The second pair within the second element is called number and has a number value of 646 space 555-4567. If we would like to convert a PowerShell object into a JSON object, we can use the ConvertTo-Json commandlet to achieve this. The only parameter that is compulsory is the input object parameter. This is the object we would like to turn into a JSON object. The depth parameter is optional. It specifies how many levels of contained objects are included in the JSON representation. The default value is 2. The compress parameter is optional. It removes white spaces and indent formatting in the output string. This is an example on how to turn a PowerShell object into a JSON object. Alternately, we can pipe an object or a commandlet into the ConvertTo-Json commandlet to achieve the same thing. If we would like to create a PowerShell object from a JSON object, we can use the ConvertFrom-Json commandlet to achieve this. The only parameter that is available is the input object parameter. This is the JSON object we would like to turn into a PowerShell object. Here is an example on how to turn a PowerShell object into a JSON object. Alternately, we can again pipe the object or the commandlet into the ConvertFrom-Json commandlet to achieve the same thing. To get a JSON object from a web page on the internet, we can use the Invoke Web Request commandlet. We need to specify the URL of the JSON content in the URI parameter that we would like to retrieve. Once we have a successful web request, we can use the content of the web request to turn this into a PowerShell object. If this content is not sufficient, please view my session on Windows PowerShell How to HTML to get more information on how to use the Invoke Web Request commandlet. Here is an example on how to use the Invoke Web Request commandlet. We first need to create an object variable from the web request. Then we can use the content property to display the content of the web page, which should be the JSON object. Okay, let's wrap this up with a couple of examples in Windows PowerShell ISE. Okay, I would like to start off with demonstrating to you how to use the ConvertTo-Json commandlet. So we are going to start off with getting the date for the millennium. Then we are going to select the properties, all the properties from this object. As you can see, we have quite a lot of properties that are associated to the date object, and then we are going to convert that into the ConvertTo-Json using the pipeline. All right, as you can see, we have generated a JSON object that starts with a left brace. Then we have got a couple of pairs. Here we have the backslash as an escape character. We have a time of day pair object that has another object and a couple more pairs within that. All right, we can also achieve this by first of all creating an object, a PowerShell object. So we could create a PowerShell object variable. And if we have that variable, we can use that to pass that into the input object parameter and then create another JSON object. Another way to do this is, instead of creating an object variable, we can just pass the complete command into the input object by putting it into round brackets. So if I do this, I will achieve exactly the same thing as we did before. Okay, up next I will demonstrate to you how to convert from JSON with a web request. So we are going to invoke a web request. Then in the URI parameter, we will specify the URL of a test location. I'm just going to run this to show you what it looks like. And as you can see up here under the content, we actually have a JSON object. So I will run this and then just display the content. So you can see our JSON object, and then we can convert that from a JSON object into a PowerShell object. Now that we have a PowerShell object, we can actually use the properties. So if I press the dot, you will see the properties that are available, and we can use these individually. Okay, up next I will demonstrate to you how to convert from JSON using an input object. We have created the object up here, and now we are going to convert that back into a PowerShell object. And as you can see, we have a PowerShell object, and down here it created a hash table for the pair with the other object pairs or object elements. All right, now I'd like to demonstrate to you how to convert from JSON using a file. So I've created a text file. I will just show you what that file looks like by using the get content commandlet. And I'm just going to scroll up. So you can see we have a couple of pairs. Oops, sorry. We have a couple of pairs. Then down here we have got an array. Some more pairs. Then we've got another array, and we are using Unicode characters down here. And this is the way to display Unicode characters. All right, so I will create an object from that. So PowerShell object. Now that we have a PowerShell object, we can view the properties that are available by just pressing the dot, and you can see that we have an address, the age, first name, and so on. So we can use this information individually. If we have an object that is nested, we can, like the gender, let me show you first. We have the gender, and then we have another layer called the type. This is the way to get the information of pairs. And we have the address pair. So this is the same thing. If we press the address and then press the dot again, we can get the street address. So we can get this information from our PowerShell object. All right, up next I will show you how to use the array. So if we look at the phone number, you will see that there are no properties available. So I will run the count. So you can see that there are two properties or two elements within that array. So we need to use a loop to actually get those out of the array. So we're going to say for each, and then create a loop, and then write the host for each value that is within that loop, getting the type and getting the number. Oops, let's run that. There we go. This is the way to get the information out of an array. All right, down here we are going to call the information for the Unicode characters. And again, I'm using the for each loop since it is an array. And if I execute that, you will see the Unicode characters displayed as emoji icons. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the session, and I'm looking forward to our next one.